Maya sits on her couch, phone still warm in her hand. She's just spent 2 hours listening to her friend Rachel's latest crisis, the third one this week. As the call ends, Maya feels something she can't quite name. Hollow, exhausted, like someone just siphoned the life force straight from her chest. She looks around her apartment. Dishes from 3 days ago still sit in the sink. The promotion paperwork she was excited about lies forgotten on her coffee table. Her own problems feel selfish, her own dreams suddenly small and unimportant. Maya doesn't realize it yet, but she's just been fed upon, not by some supernatural creature lurking in the shadows, but by something far more common and infinitely more dangerous. An emotional vampire, someone who doesn't drink blood, they drink energy, joy, peace, and possibility. And the most terrifying part, they make you complicit in your own draining. Tonight, we're exposing the predators hiding in plain sight. The ones who leave you feeling empty while somehow convincing you that you're helping. Because recognizing a vampire is the first step to not becoming their next meal. Picture this. You have a friend who only calls when they need something. Not money or favors, but something more precious, your emotional bandwidth. They arrive at your doorstep, bleeding from wounds they keep reopening, expecting you to serve as both doctor and donor. Rachel has perfected this art. Every conversation follows the same script: crisis, chaos, and an urgent need for Maya's complete attention. The boyfriend who's definitely a sociopath this time, the boss who has it out for her, the family that never understood her. Each story is compelling, each crisis seemingly legitimate, each request for support perfectly reasonable. But here's what Maya doesn't see. Rachel never gets better. The crises multiply but never resolve. The advice Maya offers disappears into a void. Emotional labor Maya provides gets consumed without gratitude or reciprocation. Rachel doesn't want solutions, she wants sustenance. Carl Jung wrote about psychic vampirism, the unconscious process of draining others' emotional energy to fill an internal void. These aren't necessarily malicious people. They're emotionally starving individuals who've learned that other people's energy can temporarily fill their emptiness. The tragedy isn't just that it happens. It's that empathetic people like Maya become willing victims, mistaking depletion for devotion, exhaustion for love. Emotional vampires operate on a simple but devastating principle. They've discovered that other people's energy is easier to access than generating their own. Like biological parasites, they've evolved sophisticated mechanisms to ensure their host keeps giving without realizing they're being consumed. The identification phase. Vampires have an uncanny ability to spot empaths, fixers, and people pleasers. They sense emotional availability like sharks sense blood in water. If you're someone who feels responsible for others' happiness, who believes your worth comes from being needed, who struggles to say no, you've just lit up their radar. The attachment ritual. They don't just befriend you. They make themselves indispensable to your identity. You become the only person who really understands them, their rock, their lifeline. Suddenly, their emotional stability becomes your responsibility. Machiavelli would appreciate the elegance. They've made you the author of your own imprisonment. The feeding mechanism. Every interaction becomes an energy transfer. They arrive depleted and leave recharged, while you experience the opposite.
Oh.
They share their problems not to solve them, but to offload them. They seek your empathy not to heal, but to temporarily feel less alone in their chaos. The dependency loop. Here's the genius. They make you addicted to being needed. Your attempts to help never succeed completely, ensuring they'll return for more. Like a drug dealer, they've created a customer who can't walk away. Robert Greene called this manufacturing weakness. They keep you hooked by never quite getting better. The guilt insurance. When you try to create boundaries, they don't argue. They suffer visibly. They become fragile, wounded, abandoned. Your natural compassion becomes their weapon against your self-preservation. The result? You're not in a relationship. You're in a one-sided energy extraction system disguised as friendship. When your greatest strength becomes your weakness, your capacity for empathy is beautiful. It's also what makes you vulnerable to emotional predators who've learned to weaponize your compassion against your well-being. Meet Tom, a therapist who attracted energy vampires like moths to flame. His colleague Karen would corner him after every staff meeting to unload her latest drama. "You're the only one who gets it," she'd say, making Tom feel chosen, special, needed. What Tom didn't recognize was the pattern. Karen was always in crisis, always needed just 5 minutes, and never actually implemented any of the insight or advice he offered. After 6 months, Tom found himself dreading work. His own therapy sessions with clients felt exhausting. He'd given so much emotional labor to Karen that he had nothing left for the people he was actually paid to help. His empathy, instead of being a professional asset, had become a personal liability. Freud understood this dynamic. The mind is like an iceberg, most of it is below the surface. Emotional vampires operate primarily from their unconscious need for energy. But empathetic people respond from their conscious desire to help. This mismatch creates a perfect storm. They're taking more than they realize, and you're giving more than you can sustain. The cruel irony is that your kindness enables their dysfunction. By constantly providing emotional relief, you remove their motivation to develop their own coping mechanisms. You're not helping them grow. You're helping them stay dependent. The lesson isn't to become heartless sits, to become selective. Your empathy is a finite resource that should be invested in people who use it to heal, not to remain comfortable in their chaos. Why they choose chaos over peace? Emotional vampires aren't victims of circumstance. They're addicts. Their drug of choice isn't substances. It's intensity, crisis, and the adrenaline rush of perpetual emergency. Peace feels like death to them, because peace doesn't generate the attention and energy they crave. Consider Jennifer, whose friend Mark was a walking soap opera. Every week brought a new catastrophe. Job conflicts, relationship drama, family feuds, health scares. Jennifer spent years trying to help Mark find stability, offering solutions, connections, even financial support. But every time Mark's life seemed to improve, he'd unconsciously sabotage it, creating new crises that required Jennifer's immediate attention. Alfred Adler called this the lifestyle of superiority through suffering. Mark had learned that being in crisis made him the center of attention, gave him power over others' time and energy, and excused him from the responsibility of actually solving his problems. Crisis became his identity. The manipulation is subtle, but devastating. They make you believe that without your help, they'll fall apart completely. But here's what you don't see. They were falling apart before you arrived. And they'll continue falling apart no matter how much energy you pour into their void. Your help doesn't stabilize them. It enables their addiction to instability. Jung observed that some people are addicted to their own suffering because it's the only way they know how to connect with others. They've learned that being broken gets them attention, that being whole never could. It's a hard truth. You can't save someone who's drowning on purpose. Your rescue attempts don't teach them to swim. They teach them that drowning gets them what they want. The kindest thing you can do is step back and let them experience the natural consequences of their choices. Recognizing the transaction behind the relationship, every relationship, is an energy exchange. Healthy relationships feel like mutual investment. You give and receive in ways that leave both people enriched. Vampiric relationships feel like donations to a black hole. You give continuously while receiving only the temporary satisfaction of being needed. Sarah learned this lesson through brutal experience with her sister Emily. Family gatherings became dreaded events where Emily would monopolize conversations with her latest struggles, turning every celebration into a therapy session. When Sarah tried to share her own news of promotion, a new relationship, a creative project, Emily would somehow redirect the conversation back to her own problems within minutes. The energy audit is simple but revealing. After spending time with this person, do you feel energized or depleted, inspired or exhausted, hopeful or drained? Do you look forward to seeing them, or do you feel obligated? Do conversations feel like exchanges or downloads? Machiavelli wrote, "Everyone sees what you appear to be. Few experience what you really are." Emotional vampires have mastered the art of appearing vulnerable while actually being predatory. They present as wounded, but they function as consumers. Here's the diagnostic question. When you share your own struggles or successes with this person, what happens? Do they offer genuine support, or do they immediately compare their situation to yours? Do they celebrate your wins, or do they find ways to minimize them? Do they remember details about your life, or do they only remember the parts that relate to their own experience? Real friends are emotional contributors, not just consumers. They add value to your life even when they're going through difficult times. They don't use their struggles as weapons against your happiness. Why you can't resist the wounded. The most honest question you might never ask yourself. Why do you keep choosing people who need fixing? Why does the friend who has everything together seem boring compared to the one who's always in crisis? The answer reveals something uncomfortable about your own psychology. Dr. Stephen Karpman identified the drama triangle, a toxic relationship pattern where people rotate between roles of victim, rescuer, and persecutor. Emotional vampires are professional victims, and they specifically target people with strong rescuer tendencies. You're not just their energy source, you're their co-conspirator. Meet David, a successful businessman who kept attracting romantic partners in various stages of emotional crisis. His friends couldn't understand it. David was accomplished, stable, generous, yet he consistently chose women who were struggling with addiction, mental health issues, or financial chaos. The pattern repeated so consistently it couldn't be coincidence. In therapy, David discovered the uncomfortable truth. Fixing broken people made him feel powerful, needed, morally superior. Their dependency validated his worth in ways that equal partnerships never could. He wasn't attracted to their problems. He was addicted to being their solution. Freud called this repetition compulsion, the unconscious tendency to recreate familiar patterns, even destructive ones. If you grew up in a household where love was earned through caretaking, where your value was measured by your usefulness to others, then healthy reciprocal relationships might actually feel foreign and uncomfortable. The vampires aren't just feeding on your energy, they're feeding your need to be needed. They're giving you a sense of purpose, identity, and moral validation that you haven't learned to generate independently. The relationship isn't just draining you, it's completing you in ways you're afraid to examine. Breaking free requires more than setting boundaries with them. It requires honest examination of why you need them to need you. The exorcism of emotional vampires. Protecting yourself from energy vampires isn't about becoming cold. It's about becoming conscious. Awareness transforms you from prey to person with agency and choice. The energy budget. Start treating your emotional energy like money. You wouldn't give your salary to anyone who asked, so why give your life force to anyone who demands it? Create boundaries around when, how much, and to whom you give your attention. The solutions test. When someone brings you problems, offer solutions. If they reject every suggestion and seem more interested in talking about the problem than solving it, you've identified a vampire. Real people in crisis want help. Emotional vampires want an audience. The reciprocity requirement. Start expecting mutuality. Share your own struggles and see how they respond. They can't hold space for your needs. While expecting you to hold unlimited space for theirs, the relationship is parasitic. At the time limit. Set boundaries on crisis conversations. I have 20 minutes to talk. Isn't minutes healthy?
Oh, notice how they respond to limits.
Vampires will push back, guilt trip, or create new urgency. Healthy people will respect your boundaries. The withdrawal method. Stop being available for every emergency. The calls go to voicemail. Take time to respond to texts. Create space between their chaos and your peace. Your compassion is not a public resource. It belongs to you, and you choose how to invest it. The dawn after darkness. Maya's phone buzzes with another text from Rachel, another crisis, another urgent need for attention, but this time Maya doesn't answer immediately. She sets the phone aside and returns to her breakfast, to her morning routine, to her own life. It took Maya 6 months to realize that being needed isn't the same as being loved, that helping someone shouldn't require sacrificing yourself, that real friendship energizes rather than depletes. The vampires are still out there, searching for their next willing donor. But Maya is no longer on the menu. She's learned the difference between compassion and consumption, between caring and enabling, between love and feeding. Your energy is sacred. Your peace is precious. Your emotional well-being is not a sacrifice you owe to anyone else's hunger. The invitation isn't to stop caring, it's start caring about yourself with the same intensity you've been caring about others. Who's been feeding on you while you convinced yourself you were helping?